class, and how are we doing? I hope by the grace of God we are all fine. Today we are going to continue our lesson, and it is a new topic, that is rocks. So today we are going to discuss rocks. But before we continue with the definition of rocks, or before I present the definition of rocks to you, I would like us to go through certain definition of terms. Now, these definitions will help us to get a better understanding of the meaning of rocks. One of the terms I would like us to discuss is agglomeration. When we talk about agglomeration, it refers to the process of particles, substances, or objects coming together to form a larger mass. So when smaller particles of objects come together to form a larger mass, we say that there have been an agglomeration of the smaller particles. The next term I would like us to explain is minerals. When we talk about minerals, we are talking about a solid naturally occurring inorganic substance. So for the benefit of our topic, rocks, this is the definition of mineral that you have to put in mind. That it is a solid, naturally occurring organic substances. So these are the two key terms I would like us to understand before I present the definition of rocks to you. Now, the definition of rocks. Rocks refers to the agglomeration of minerals. The agglomeration of minerals. As I have explained earlier, that agglomeration is where smaller particles or substances form together to make or form a larger mass of that particular substance or particle. And you know that minerals are the solid, naturally occurring inorganic substance. So when these minerals form together to form a larger mass of substance, it is termed as what? Rocks. So in simply put, rocks refers to the agglomeration of minerals. By this definition, rocks may be hard, soft, loose, or compact materials such as sand, coal, mud, and then clay. Now, let us move on to the classification of rocks as we have understood the term rocks. The earth crust. When we talk about crust, it is the outermost layer of the earth's surface, forming the solid shell of which we live. For better understanding, you can also watch my previous lessons on the lithosphere. So in simply put, the crust is the outermost layer of the earth's surface, forming the solid shell on which we live. So the earth crust consists of various kinds of rocks. So as we find ourselves on the crust, we have various kinds of rocks which they differ in terms of color, in terms of density, in terms of texture, in terms of their ability to hold water, that's permeability, or as water passes through them, in terms of their ability to resist erosion. They differ in these terms. Generally speaking, rocks may be classified into three major groups. Rocks may be classified into three major groups, and these three major groups are: 1. Igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, metamorphic rocks. So these are the three classifications or types of rocks. We have the igneous rocks, the metamorphic rocks, and then the sedimentary rocks. Now, this classification is based on their formation or origin, and to some extent their appearance. So we have igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, and then metamorphic rocks. These are the three major types or classifications of rocks on the basis of their formation or origin, and to some extent their appearance. Now, let us first take the first rock. In this lesson, we are going to take the igneous rock. The igneous rock. And we will discuss the description of igneous rocks. In general, when we talk about igneous rocks, what is igneous rocks? We will talk about the characteristics, and then we will talk about their mode of formation and then their mineral composition. After that, we will talk about their uses. First of all, let's give a general view of igneous rocks. The term igneous comes from the Latin word ignis, which means fire. Igneous rocks, therefore, is formed from the cooling and solidification of molten rocks, which is magma, from beneath the earth crust. Now, magma will be well understood when we take the formation of igneous rocks. So you can jot it down and wait for me if we get to the formation of igneous rocks. So in the general view, we are saying that igneous rocks are formed from the cooling and solidification of molten rocks, that is magma, from beneath the earth crust. Let us move on to the characteristics of igneous rocks, as we have now understood the term igneous rocks. The chief characteristics of igneous rock is that they are crystalline. They are crystalline. When we say something is crystalline, it means they contain crystals. When we also talk about crystals, we mean a solid substance whose molecules are arranged in a repeating pattern. So when you look at the picture on your screen on the examples of igneous rocks, when we take the granite, you could see that it is having a repeating pattern of molecules on it. So that is termed as what? A crystal. Igneous rock is an example of granite is an example of igneous rocks. Second characteristic, they are usually hard and resistant rock. Igneous rocks are very hard and they are also resistant to erosion. So it becomes very difficult for them to be affected by erosion because they are resistant rocks. They are not stratified. That is the next characteristic. They are not stratified. That is, they do not occur in layers, as some rocks occur in layers. For igneous rocks, they do not occur in layers. The fourth characteristic we will want to discuss is that they may not contain fossils. Talk about fossils, talking about the remains, whether animals or what, plants or other organisms. So they may not contain fossils of animals and other organisms. So that is the fourth characteristic of igneous rocks. Igneous rocks may be classified using two major criteria. We are looking at the classification of igneous rocks, and we are saying that igneous rocks may be classified using two major criteria. And what are the criteria? One, we have mode of formation, and two, we have the chemical or mineral composition. So these are the two criteria when we are classifying igneous rocks. I said one is mode of formation and chemical or mineral composition. First of all, let us look at the mode of formation. The mode of formation. In terms of origin, there are two types of igneous rocks. We have the intrusive rock, which is in turn subdivided into plutonic and then hyperbasal rocks. So in terms of origin, there are two types of igneous rocks, and the two types, one is intrusive igneous rocks, and under intrusive igneous rocks we have plutonic and hyperbasal rocks. And then the second one is extrusive or volcanic rocks. Extrusive or volcanic rocks. So the two types of igneous rocks in terms of origin is the intrusive igneous rock and extrusive igneous rocks. And then we are saying that under the intrusive, it is subdivided into plutonic and hyperbasal rocks. Now, let's look at the formation of the igneous rocks. Deep within the earth crust, temperatures are very high, and it is believed that the rocks there have melted. Because of the high temperatures, it is believed that the rocks over there are melted and thus are in liquid state. So the rocks are melted and thus they are in liquid state. However, these liquid rocks are kept in molten state. That is semi-liquid state, molten state, semi-liquid state called magma. I told you that you have to jot the magma down. When we are looking at the formation of igneous rocks, you will get the understanding better. So as the rocks that is found deep within the earth crust is melted, they are kept in a liquid state, and the liquid state, that is the semi-liquid state, are called the magma. In view of the tremendous pressure exerted on them by the overlaying rocks. When we talk about overlaying rocks, we mean rocks that is over another rocks. And we are saying that in view of the tremendous pressure exerted on them by the overlaying rocks, when there is a relief of pressure through, say, faulting, we are talking about a crack. So when there is a relief of pressure, let's say when there is a crack on the rock, there will be a relief of pressure and the magma becomes liquid and rushes upward. So when there is a crack within the rocks, there will be a relief of pressure and the magma will become liquid and then it will rushes upward. In the course of rising, some of the magma cools and solidifies within the earth crust to form intrusive rocks. So the intrusive rocks, in the course of the magma rising, when it cools and solidifies within the earth crust, it forms intrusive igneous rocks. As I earlier said, intrusive rocks are classified as plutonic rock if they form at great depth. Plutonic rocks cool and solidifies very slowly and develops large and easily recognized crystals. Examples of plutonic rocks include granite and gabbro. So when in the course of the magma rising, it cools and solidifies within the earth crust. Some of the magma will cool and solidify within the earth crust, that is inside, within the earth crust, to form intrusive igneous rocks. And as I said earlier, I said that under intrusive igneous rocks, we have two classifications. That is the plutonic and the hyperbasal. And I'm saying that the plutonic rocks are formed at great depth. Plutonic rocks cools and solidifies very slowly and develop large and easily recognized crystals. You already know what crystals are. And examples of plutonic rocks include granite and gabbro. Granite and gabbro. On the other hand, if intrusive rocks are formed in cracks and bedding planes just beneath the surface of the earth, they are classified as hyperbasal rocks. They are classified as hyperbasal rocks. Now, hyperbasal rocks undergo relatively rapid cooling and solidification and develop crystals smaller than that of the plutonic rocks. So let us try to give some differences between the plutonic intrusive igneous rock and hyperbasal intrusive igneous rock. You could see that the plutonic one, it is formed at a greater depth within the earth crust. It is formed at a greater depth within the earthward crust, and it cools and solidifies slowly. But for the hyperbasal, we are saying that it is formed in the cracks and bedding planes just beneath the surface of the earth, and they are classified as hyperbasal rocks. Also, hyperbasal rocks undergoes rapid cooling and solidification, which develops crystals smaller than that of the plutonic rocks. So for the plutonic rock, the cooling and solidification is slow, and because of that, it forms a larger crystal or forms larger crystals. But for the hyperbasal, because its cooling and solidification is rapid, that is fast, it forms or develops smaller crystals. Why do you think that hyperbasal rocks rapidly cools and solidifies than the plutonic rocks? You could see that the plutonic intrusive igneous rock, it is still deep down, so it does not get contact with the air, so it is still deep within the earth crust, so the cooling will be slow as well as the solidification. Now the hyperbasal, as it is coming near the earth surface, the cooling will be rapid than the one that is deep within, that is the plutonic. So the hyperbasal, as it is getting to the surface of the earth, the cooling becomes rapid. So that is why the hyperbasal, the cooling is rapid. So the cooling and the solidification is what? Rapid. So they form smaller crystals than that of the plutonic. Examples of hyperbasal rocks include granophyry and then the porphyry. So these are examples of hyperbasal rocks. Let me also give you examples of the plutonic rocks. We have granite, we also have gabbro, we also have batholith, which is also an intrusive igneous rocks. Let us move on. So when the magma eventually, so now the magma is deep within the earth crust, but when it eventually reaches the surface of the earth in the form of lava. So here, when magma reaches the surface of the earth, it is called lava. So when the magma eventually reaches the surface of the earth in the form of lava, it cools and solidifies very rapidly. Why? Because of its exposure to the air to form extrusive or volcanic rocks. So when the magma comes, finally, when the magma reaches the surface of the earth, it cools rapidly due to the exposure of air to form extrusive or volcanic rocks. Because of the rapid cooling, extrusive or volcanic rocks usually develop very tiny crystals, making them go easier glassy, and sometimes they are described as glassy rocks. Glassy rocks. Now, when you look at the picture of the examples of igneous rocks, when you look at obsidian, which is an example of extrusive igneous rock, you could see that it is very glassy, very glassy. As you look at the picture of some of the examples of igneous rock, you see that the obsidian is very glassy because it has undergone rapid cooling and solidification. That is why it is forming that glassy nature of rocks. So that is also extrusive igneous rocks. Now, examples of extrusive igneous rocks are, we have the basalt, we have the obsidian, and then the andesite. All these are examples of extrusive igneous rocks. So now let's look at some examples of igneous rocks in total. So all the granite, the gabbro, the basalt, the andesite, and everything, they are all examples of igneous rocks. And these are some of the pictures that I can show you on some of the examples of igneous rocks. So have a look at it. So the first one, that's the basalt. We have the granite, we have the obsidian, we have the gabbro. Try and identify some of these rocks in the picture presented to you. Now, let us move on to the chemical or mineral composition of igneous rocks. Now, there are four major classes of the mineral composition or chemical composition. These are acid, basic, intermediate, and ultra basic rocks So basically we have four major classes, and they are acid, basic, intermediate, and ultra basic rocks. So I have summarized everything in the table that is shown on the screen. So when we take the acid rock, the chemical composition, which is silica, and then we also have the basic acid. So when we take the mineral composition column, we have the silica, and then we have the basic acid. So when we take acid rock, looking at the silica content, it is greater than 66%. And then when you look at the basic acid, it is less than 35%. When we come to the basic rocks, to looking at the silica percentage, it is 55% to 45%. And when you look at the basic acid content, it is 45 to 55%. Now, when we move on to the intermediate rocks, looking at the silica percentage, it is 65% to 55%. 65% to 55%. And then when we look at the basic acid content or percentage, it is 35 to 45%. Ultra basic rocks, when you look at the silica percentage, it is greater than 45% and less than 55. It is less than 55% and then greater than 55%. Ultra basic rock silica percentage is less than 45% and greater than 55%. percent. So the mineral composition, that is the silica and the basic acid, it is igneous rock is grouped under four main categories based on the mineral composition, whether the silica and then the basic. And then it is summarized in this table. When we take the acid rocks, take the silica percentage, that is the silica percentage and the basic percentage. The basic rock, the intermediate rock, and the ultra basic rock. We have all the silica percentage and then the basic acid percentage. Now let us look at some uses of igneous rocks. Some uses of igneous rocks. One of the uses of igneous rock is that igneous rock is broken down into chippings, that is broken down into smaller particles for the construction of roads, bridge, harbors, and houses. So the road is being constructed by igneous rock, which is what? Granite. The harbors, and then the bridge, your house, the house that you are watching me from, they are all built from granite. And then use number two, they are normally rich in such minerals like gold. As we said, rocks is the agglomeration of minerals. So there might be some minerals which is composed in some of these rocks. So in igneous rock, it is rich in minerals like gold, copper, tin, and diamond. The mining and exploitation of these minerals fetch the country some foreign exchange for developmental projects in the country. So it is also a use of it. Another important or uses of igneous rock is that it weather to form soil. That it breaks down into smaller particles to form soil. The basis of what? Of farming. The basis of farming. So these are the uses of igneous rocks. Now take your time and enjoy the video. The video in the next slide. Now this video will show how magma reaches the earth's surface as lava cools and solidifies to form igneous rocks. This brings us to the end of our lesson today. In today's lesson, we talked about the term or the meaning of rock. We also mentioned the classifications of rocks. We got to know that there are three classifications: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. In today's lesson, we took the igneous rocks and discussed its description, its mode of formation, its chemical composition, its examples, and uses. In our next lesson, we are going to take the next type of rock, which is the sedimentary rock. So what you have to do is to subscribe to my YouTube channel. See, when you scroll down, you see the subscription over there. Subscribe to the channel. The reason why you have to subscribe to the channel is that you get a notification if my lesson on sedimentary rock is being dropped. So subscribe to the channel. Have a nice and a blessed day. God bless you. Bye.